Good afternoon and welcome to the latest series of our HOP webinars. So HOP is the Hertfordshire Opportunities website. It's a site that we hope all schools and colleges in Hertfordshire will be using because it's a one-stop shop for all the careers information and resources that you might need. The purpose of these webinars is to allow you as students, young people in Hertfordshire, to hear directly from professionals who are doing jobs, running courses that may be of interest to you. And the focus of our webinar today is in set and prop design, which is a very, very important part of Hertfordshire's burgeoning film, media and TV production industry. It's a really, really great time to get into this industry, so particularly for those of you who live in Hertfordshire. So we're going to explore some different careers and some different courses available for you today. A little bit of housekeeping to start with. First of all, we can't see or hear any of you that are watching this. We are recording live. It's Thursday afternoon, so well done for coming in from school or college, registering for this webinar and then tuning in to watch it live. By watching it live, you've got the benefit that you will be able to interact with our panelists. So you'll be able to ask them questions. You'll be able to just find out a little bit more about what they're doing. And the way that you do that is on the questions tab of your dashboard. You'll see there's a questions tab on there. If you open that out, it will open out a text box, and within the text box you will be able to type in your question. It will only be visible to me, and then I can direct it to our panelists that you want it to go to. So if there's anyone in particular you want the webinar to go to, your question to go to, then do just put that in on the question. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to our panelists who are with us today. So first of all, a very good afternoon to Aaron. Aaron, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So yeah, I'm Aaron. I've been working since about 2020. You know, the year the world broke loose. And I'm an assistant art director now. I've just finished an independent film called Harvest. And you know, I've been doing a few other little short assistant art director jobs. My first big job was Mission Impossible as an arts department assistant, and yeah, I'm looking forward to you know, answering any questions you need.
Sure. And Aaron, you obviously went to school in Hertfordshire. You went to, well, tell everyone where you went to school, where you studied.
Yeah, so I studied at Elstree Screen Arts Academy, which I've got to say was a really, really good college. Really, really cool. Great place to be around with like all these different kind of people studying these different arty kind of subjects. And yeah, I thoroughly recommend. I mean, later on I'll go in and talk about the different subjects I might have studied and you know, what I recommend if you want to kind of go down this channel in set design. Yeah.
For sure. And in fact, I think we may well have some people watching this at the moment from Elstree Screen Arts Academies. Good afternoon to Quentin. Quentin, good afternoon. I know we've got some sound issues from your end, which we'll try and get around, but we're really grateful that you joined us today, Quentin. Tell us a little bit about you.
I hope you can hear me, and apologies for any sound that I'm missing. Technical things like this aren't necessarily my strong point. My forte is props. I work in the props department. I've done for many years, and within my career in the props department, I've spanned all the different roles within the props department, and I've worked in all the different genres in the film, TV, commercials, pop promos. So I've got quite a broad experience and understanding of the props and the props department.
Thank you. Brilliant, Quentin. We'll come back with lots of questions that we will put your way in the next hour or so. And then good afternoon, Steve. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Steve Sheffield. I run the model design course up here at the University of Hertfordshire. So it's a 3-year degree course, and within that course we've got 3 separate pathways, so our students can go off and specialise in a specific kind of pathway to prepare them for a certain aspect of film or making generally.
Thank you. So look, we will find out. Well, I think your background is also really interesting, Steve, personally, but I'm sure we'll delve into that, and we'll also ask lots more questions about the courses that you and your colleagues offer at the University of Hertfordshire. So first of all, then, just want to find out a little bit more about what a day in the life looks like for you within your role. So Aaron, first of all, could you tell us, apart from joining this webinar today, what does Thursday look like for an assistant art director?
Okay, so Thursday, it might be, you might get into work. Maybe it's at Pinewood Studios, maybe it's the new Sky Studios in Elstree, and most likely you'll be helping on some kind of technical drawing, which is like a blueprint that you kind of see in these like old spy films and stuff. And so what you would do, you would be delegated a drawing to do by a art director, and you'll be in charge of part of a set, and that kind of changes on the scale of what kind of film you're on. So if you're on a really big film, that's exactly what you would do. If you're on a relatively smaller film, maybe still like a feature film, but just not like a Mission Impossible, let's say, then you'll still get to, you'll have to be more in charge of those drawings, and speak directly with the designer and art director, and kind of be in charge of your own sets. But yeah, that's, essentially you are in charge of communicating through these technical drawings that you might draw on like a big A0 board, or even CAD these days, using 3D models, and getting plans and elevations from them to then present to the construction team, and then get built through the construction team, and then go on set and film it. But yeah, it's all the kind of helping with the pre-production side of things. And I think as you kind of go further up, you do get quite involved with these bigger discussions with quite big people in the department. You might have to speak with the director sometimes, and you might get to go on your own excursion to one of the locations and start plotting out where the set might go, and then coming back in, delegating drawings to people lower down the department, and also helping do it yourself. So that's the general kind of outline. It's all revolves around technical drawings, which is the core of the arts department, really, and it's through the production designer's vision, of course, where these kind of ideas come from. But yeah, it's talking with the supervisor and trying to get these drawings produced.
Sure. And now, notwithstanding any non-disclosure acts that you might have signed, Aaron, but have you got any specific examples you could give us of a film you've been involved on, and specifically perhaps a drawing or a piece of art that you've been responsible for? And just tell us, what was the process?
Yeah, so I can tell you quite a decent one. So it was Your Christmas or Mine, which was a big Amazon Christmas film last year. I know they're doing a sequel coming out this year. But essentially, one of the core things I had to do was survey up a Tudor manor called Dorney. So this was Dorney Court in Windsor, and it was very kind of like crookedy kind of building with lots of land. And essentially, I had to go around with a stick and walk around the entire grounds, use a tape measure, laser beams, whatever, and survey that whole location. And then in the script, it actually said they were looking to make that into a prop. So essentially, that was not wasted information at all. And so we created a plan for it, which all the we started off creating a plan, which is a technical drawing. I did that on CAD using a software called Rhino for this one. And once I'd done that, it was going to be useful to then try and make a 3D version to then 3D print for this prop. And yeah, so that, I mean, that in the end we rendered it slightly with some, you know, some color and whatever, and it got into the scene in the film, this prop. But that was one big site I was kind of in control of for this Christmas film. Yeah, I mean, I can give you another example, but that was just just one.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we may well come for them, and our people in the audience may well ask some more specific questions as well. So keep those up your sleeve for the time being, Aaron. Quentin, then coming back to you, you're part of the props department. So, I mean, first of all, just want to point out that you are self-employed, aren't you? So a film or a TV production will hire you and your company to come in to support them for a production. Just talk us through how that process works in the first instance, then we'll get on to what you might actually do once you're there.
Yeah. Okay, so it's definitely worth mentioning that everybody, pretty much everybody in the film industry is freelance. You know, the downside of that is there is no job security. As I often say, it's no show, no dough. You know, if I don't turn up to work, I'm not getting paid. Or in the current circumstances, when the actors go out on strike and when the film comes to an end, you don't get paid anymore. You know, the upshot of that also is, you know, you are in charge of your own destiny. If there are a selection of projects going on, I can choose which one I want to go and work on. You know, and that is one of the benefits of being freelance, but there is no job security, so that is something that everybody should be bearing in mind.
Sure. Okay. Yes. Just to paraphrase that, Quentin, I'll say I apologise, everyone. The sound quality we're getting from Quentin isn't great this afternoon. But that's okay. No, he's giving us lots of really good information. So the point there was that really nearly everyone in this industry is freelance, and no exception for Quentin's team within the props team. So Quentin, you'd be hired in for a production, and again, up to you whether you're allowed to name any ones that you've been working on fairly recently, and what you and your team would be responsible for, sourcing and providing, all the props that are needed.
Yeah. So as a props department, we're responsible for effectively the whole dressing of a set. So if the set were, for example, to be a kitchen, the construction and working to the drawings that Aaron would have done, would build the floor walls and the roof, and we go in and we put in the cookers, we put in the kitchen cupboards, we put in the kitchen table, we put the food in the cupboards, the fridge, etc., etc. So we like to think that as a props department, we make the set come to life, we make it look like what it's supposed to look like. Then the other aspect of what our department does is, whilst we need to be actually shooting the kitchen set, we would look after if the scene was to involve cooking or food or whatever, or we deal with any of the day-to-day requirements for filming. We call that standing by. So we have standby partners. They work for the duration of the film by the camera alongside the director, dealing with, for example, in the kitchen, dealing with all the food and the resets, etc., that are necessary to get the shots they required.
Sure. Okay. So this is obviously a really big part of production there. So when you're watching something on TV or in a film or in the theatre, kind of everything that's on the stage is because of someone like you, Quentin, or someone in your team who can provide those. Steve, let me just come to you. You obviously work with lots of students who are really interested in going into the film and media production industry. Do you think that's something that people think about when they're first going in there, the props and just the attention to detail that's needed?
Well, the students that come to us have a pretty good idea of the kind of work that they want to do. They're just not particularly sure of any of the kind of details that they need to bear in mind, heading towards the film industry. And Aaron and Quentin have touched on a few of those kind of aspects of what life is like in the film industry, which we try to bring to our students as they come onto the course.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell us a little bit more about the courses that you offer, Steve.
Yeah, sure. So it's the umbrella term is model design here at University of Hertfordshire. And under that umbrella, we've got 3 separate pathways. So we've got a model design pathway, which takes students in a very kind of high detailed route. So they could be producing stuff possibly for product designers or for architecture or for film or TV or museum. And then we've got a special effects pathway, which deals more with a mechanization side of things. So we've got students there who are looking to produce animatronic rigs and components for the insides of creatures. And then we've got a character creation pathway, which is more sculptural and deals with the creation of form, specifically organic form, and molding and casting in various different materials.
Sure. And I mean, I guess the things that you've got on the desk behind you, Stephen, they've not turned up by accident today, have they? There's probably a reason.
No, they haven't. They haven't. We're trying to promote ourselves a bit better and go out to schools and colleges and show some of our wares, because it's quite an unusual subject. You know, if you say to someone you're a model maker, I think in a lot of instances the first thing that pops into people's minds is things like Hornby trains or Airfix kits. And whilst there is a kind of element to that, I suppose, to what some of the students do, we're also quite far removed from that. You know, we produce anything and everything.
Mm-hmm. So, and I dare say there's probably a fair amount of crossover actually between, well, definitely between the things that Aaron's been talking about, but Quentin's team as well. And I guess, Quentin, sometimes you're just asked to provide something that you might not necessarily be able to get from Tesco. You might have to go, and you might have to have things that are made specifically for you, don't you?
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, just to backtrack slightly, what Stephen's got in his background there is a very good example of what the props department would do, just for the point of view of laying them out and dressing them in that way. That's a shot that's required. Right, we put all these little bits in, and we'll make the set look interesting, and it also tells the story of what Stephen does. So it's a very good example. And we are asked quite a lot to provide set dressing, but there's a whole plethora of hire companies that we use that just specialise in. I mean, for example, there's one called Just Kitchens, and believe it or not, they hire kitchen stuff. There's one called Modern Furniture. There's one called Classic. There's one called Picture Props. You can imagine what all these companies do. So we tend to go to those companies. We hire props from them. We bring them in. Part of my responsibility is to check those props in, to make sure that what they're saying that we have actually received. They won't get dressed onto the set. The filming is done with the standbys, and then it's my responsibility to make sure that those hired props are returned. Because honestly, if there's a big cost involved. So part of my responsibility is to minimise those costs, which we call loss and damage. Obviously, film sets are very busy, frantic environments. Accidents do happen, but obviously we want to try and keep it to a minimum, keep all those unnecessary costs to a minimum. The more we can keep the unnecessary costs to a minimum, the more money we can put on camera, and that's where we want all the money to go.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's just move the conversation on now a little bit, because I know what everyone's thinking here. They're watching it. They're thinking, well, I'd love to go into these jobs, but what qualifications do I need? What courses do I need to go on? Quentin, just in the interest of your sort of microphone issues here, you can probably answer this question in one word. But to go into props design, are there any particular courses or qualifications that people need to have? No. Okay, that's a really good and succinct answer there. So if you want to go and do the work that Quentin's doing, and it sounds really exciting work and interesting work, there are no set qualifications that you need. I think that's really important to bear in mind. Now, Aaron, let me come to you. Just talk us through the courses and the qualifications you did, and then
Yeah.
if you could just caveat that by saying whether those are courses and qualifications that everybody who does your roles on set designs needs to have.
Yeah. So in terms of qualifications, I wouldn't say you do need qualifications. No one ever checks. All you need though is to put a lot of time into learning particular softwares, maybe you know, particular parts of like hand drawing on a drawing board for technical sets, drawing and CAD. But you know, that comes at a later point, maybe one after, you know, what you might study let's say sixth form, or you know, a foundation might be something more in like the graphic design kind of thing, or you know, film studies, product design. I did art, film and graphic design at Elstree Screen Arts, and then I know I go and lecture in at the year 14 creative media course in art direction, and that kind of is they kind of make like miniature models, some generally, I mean, a lot of them are rendered. They might copy a scene from, let's say, the Grand Budapest Hotel or something, you know, and make a rendered model. And then there are projects later on in that course where, I mean, I know if I come in, I try and, you know, get it as industry close as possible. You know, do a technical drawing, then make a white card model, and you know, make sure you have all your research mood boards, and make sure you're ready to leave college after that, or you know, year 14 to go into the industry. But yeah, no, essentially, I mean, what the key kind of things I found useful in terms of what I learned was Photoshop, or any Adobe kind of thing was great, and any kinds of form of 3D design, maybe, or 2D CAD work, that's always very useful. So yeah, if you want to have, you know, if you're interested in like 3D printing and stuff, that would be really great to show in like a portfolio or something like that. Maybe like a plan of it, and or elevation and a little 3D model, and then the 3D print, something like that would be really good. But yeah, definitely high. Got, I mean, I really recommend Adobe. That's yeah.
Sure. And is that something that can be self-taught, or are there, you know, particular A levels or college courses that you think people should go to really learn?
I did graphic design when I was at Elstree for one of my A levels, which probably forced me to have to like do stuff. Whereas if I was, I mean, as loads of videos and on Photoshop and on YouTube and stuff, it just depends how much motivation you have for yourself that you'd actually end up doing that. Because, you know, if it was me and I wasn't in A level, I might do something else and watch 2 videos and not bother, and then you won't have that skill in the end. So maybe actually committing to doing a subject like graphic design will force you to learn these skills. That's what I would kind of recommend.
For sure. So I know when, and by the way, if you have any questions that you want to ask, you're watching this live, please do type them into the text box within your questions tab. They'll come through to me. There's a couple that have come in already. There were several that came in once you're registered as well, so we will cover all of those. Steve, I better come to you so you can perhaps redress the balance here, because you'll take students on who have, you know, typically finished at school or college as undergraduates. You take them on a 3-year course. You've spoken a little bit about the course. What advantages would someone have by going on and doing a university course that they may not have if they go straight into industry?
Well, I think, you know, Quentin and Aaron are absolutely right. You could head straight out into industry without college or university qualifications. But I suppose we try to cater to students who want to build a portfolio and spend more time upskilling themselves, I suppose, for want of a better word, with machinery and digital techniques, and also, you know, various different types of materials, how to mold, how to cast. So we try to make them a little bit more industry ready, with a view to them becoming, I suppose, a little bit more senior quite quickly, as opposed to them just going out there and, you know, taking time to find their feet, to actually progress through the industry a little bit quicker, hopefully.
Sure. And yeah, Quentin, I know Quentin wants to come in, so yeah, Quentin, please do.
And what I feel important to mention is that at least if you were to go through the course that's run by Stephen or in the academic process, it means that you can have a taster of what it's like in a safe environment and where you're supported, rather than being straight out in industry where actually there's proper deadlines that properly making actually does need to get onto the set, and therefore if you mess it up, there are consequences. You know, obviously, any junior is very, very supported in the industry itself. However, you know, if you were to be able to go and do a course with Stephen, you can have kind of like experience of using all these things before you're doing the real deal, so to speak. So, sorry to interrupt. I hope people got that.
Yeah. No, but Steve, back to you.
Yeah, no, I mean it's good to hear. I mean, one thing we're trying to introduce now with our second years is most of our modules are, I suppose, about 10 to 12 weeks long, which is perhaps not truly reflective of what it's like to work on a project in props or in the film industry. So now in the second year, we're trying to introduce what are called turbo projects, which are far more reflective of a industry time frame to produce a prop or to produce a model. So there's a rapid turnaround. There's also an emphasis on group work as well.
For sure. Okay. Yeah, go on, Quentin. Yeah, you wanted to add something?
Just following on from this, because I do feel this is really important, you know, that it's at least if you can in some way kind of test that this is what we want to do, you know, I feel that's a positive, because if you go into the industry, the hours are very long, you know, and I do feel this is worth pointing out as well. Yeah, the hours of work are very long. It's a fast pace of working. It's in an industry that you either love because of the excitement and the variety, or it's something that isn't for you, you know. And I do feel it's important to kind of, you know, if you could have that experience beforehand, when you know it's going to be, you know, you've got the gun, you know what you're doing, and therefore you know it's for you.
Sure. Steve, just I know the questions about, well, what A-levels or how many UCAS points do I need? Just tell us, to get onto your courses, you know, typically what are the entry requirements?
So yeah, the entry requirements here are between 104 to 112 UCAS points as a standard. Now, obviously, that would drop a little bit in clearing, but yeah, most of our cohort tend to come from either A-levels or foundation programs.
I see. And again, as we say to everyone when the questions come up about UCAS points and courses, is, you know, do check the small print. We're promoting University of Hertfordshire. We want this webinar to be very Hertfordshire centric. For most of you, you'll live pretty close to there. But I know there'll be others of you that will be watching this that maybe want to go move to the other end of the country or even internationally. But just the important thing is just make sure you really read thoroughly actually what the course requirements are and what it looks like. So they'll be slightly different, won't they, Steve? There'll be other universities that on face value will offer exactly the same course, but there may be some quite sort of unique differences between them.
Yeah, I couldn't emphasize that enough. You know, go into, as boring as it may look, don't just be blinded by the glossy images. Go through the paperwork, read a bit about what you're buying into, because once you've bought into it, you're there for 3 years if it's a degree course. So you need to read and understand about what you're getting into. And if you're local to us, come and see us. Yeah,
I'm sure that can be easily arranged, can't it? Question that's just come in, and whilst we're talking about qualifications and subjects, it's worth me putting in now. So thanks to Ollie for asking this question. Are there any particular GCSEs you need that will help you move forward? And if I maybe think about the word need, or say, are there any GCSEs that you would recommend that might be useful to have, if not need? So, I mean, Aaron, first of all, if you were going back and about to choose your GCSE subject, knowing what you know now, are there any that you would particularly recommend?
Yeah, I mean, definitely art. I mean, it's just a creative subject that you can kind of cater to, you know, a lot of different themes. So I think art's, you know, always quite a big one, especially at GCSE level. DT, I didn't do, but I guess that, you know, that's using bits of wood, molding things together. They might have more technology now, like 3D prints. I don't really know. But yeah, potentially like design technology. I don't know if your course, if they have media, anything media based, that would be great. I don't think we had media at GCSE. But just, you know, anything arty essentially, I think would, all media based, would be great. And any other passion you want to do, that's fine on the side. Like if you want one of those subjects as just something completely different, then that's fine. I wouldn't say that's something to I mean, I know that's at GCSE level, you've got to do like all the subjects, isn't it? But yeah, just I'd definitely do some like art subjects or media stuff in there.
Sure. And Steve, anything that you could add to that? I think we're talking about subjects that you might want to do rather than need to do, but are there any sort of little technical skills that you find some of your better students have got because of GCSEs they've chosen?
I think everything that Aaron has mentioned, certainly. I don't think a bit of maths is harmful at all when it comes to things like dealing with scale and drawing and some of the CAD platforms that we use here. Product design is another one I'd throw into the mix because you know, we find that students who have dealt with product design or resistant materials, they've got a sense of materiality about them. They've got a sense of how to design and build things so that they stay together. But then we also get students coming through who have got experience in quite odd, random fields as well. There was someone I interviewed just before the summer who was he'd been doing a course in armory. So there are kind of left field courses that come to us which are actually quite interesting and can provide quite a bit of benefit to the student.
Sure. Quentin, let me come to you with the next question, and it's, what's the difference between the role of a prop designer compared to a set designer?
Well, a good question, but effectively a set designer deals with the environment, and prop designer deals with the objects that are within the environment.
Okay, and presumably they probably have to work together at some point, though. Those roles will cross over.
Obviously, you know, there are every set they will cross over at some point. So they do have to work together quite closely, and they have to be coming from the same point. You know, so all the new rules will be the same, all the influences will be the same, so that the aesthetic of the two marry up. So effectively they look like they're from the same world.
Sure. Okay. Gareth, yeah, please do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen on like Instagram and stuff, and you know, in the general workplace, is that it's generally a lot of concept artists that are doing a lot of the prop designing and kind of making these graphic sheets with, you know, a couple measurements, and then the set designer might do more of the, like, you know, general CAD drawing of the sets, or hand drawing of the sets. So that's more, you know, architectural and more like art department based, whereas usually the concept artist might be more solo, freelance on their own, and they kind of come in when the designer needs them. But saying that, I mean, yeah, I don't know, I think it's just similar. It is similar, but yeah, it's not really much more I can say about that.
Difference. Okay, thank you, Abby, for that question. Aaron, I'm going to come to you for this one, but Quentin and Steve, you may want to come on in as well. It's a really good question, actually. So it's from Thomas. how long does it take from start to finish to design a set? Do you need to keep the lighting in mind when doing this as to not obstruct them? And it's in brackets there, as I do, lighting for shows at school, which I think is a really good point actually, because I did want to ask you as well, what experiences could people gain, at school to help them find out whether this is the sort of industry for them? So Aaron, any thoughts on that sort of lighting issue that's been raised there? Then I'll come to Quentin and Steve.
Yeah, I mean, throughout like any training you get, and from any kind of knowledge within the industry, you would need to make sure that it is a vital thing to work out where your light sources are, and you want to supply quite a lot for the DOP to have options on set. So if something's too dark and there's no window to put a light source or something, yeah, they can stick something somewhere, but it's not the same effect to actually create a window and have the light shining through it. So 100% like definitely look out, create light sources when you can, and it is a conversation you have with DOPs when you're if you're, let's say, a production designer, that is one of the main things you would like to talk about. It's creating more, where do you want, how, what's the tone of the scene, how much light do you need? But definitely, if in doubt, create more options for light source. I don't know if Quentin wants to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to follow up on that point. There's two points I wanted to make. The first point, that on every set, there's two types of lighting, which is one is the spark lighting, which is the general lighting, which in effect is the false daylight. Then there's also what we call the practical lighting, and that's like the lighting that actually appears within the shot. So the chandeliers, for example, or candles, or oil lamps, or the actual ceiling lights that you get. So you have to bear both of those in mind. But as is in the theatre, sets tend not to have ceilings on, so that you can light through, or definitely ceilings are removable to allow you to light through. And we call them wing bags or floating pieces of set, so that we can remove pieces of set or remove ceilings to put lights in when they're required. The second point to make is I kind of feel that my experience as a youngster, although I didn't do any GCSEs relevant to anything that I do now, but I was very involved in my local theatre with the lighting, with helping out with the props, and that was where I got my first experience of this industry from. So I kind of would say that although I haven't got any relevant GCSEs, I did start my experience in youth theatre. It's a very valid thing to do.
Sure. Okay. So really good message there, and well done to Thomas for offering his support at shows at school at the moment. It's definitely something I think all of us would recommend that you go and do. It look really good on your on your CV or in your personal statement if you're applying for university. Steve, the question that's just come in that I'd be interested to get your take on, you might be closest to this, is are there any apprenticeship options into this sort of field?
It's weirdly enough, I've been part of those meetings just recently. There is actually an apprenticeship program which the Department for Education are trying to get off the ground at the moment, I believe, but I don't think it's in place yet.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of watch this space. I suppose the majority of companies who would in theory employ an apprentice are probably very small companies, so it's not quite as easy for them as it might be for larger employers.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that the conversations I've been involved in have been apprenticeships for the kind of model making industry as a whole, but that does seem to be tailored a little bit more towards the architectural industries at the moment. Whether it grows from that and spreads out into model making as a whole and prop making and more kind of film related avenues, I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, again, watch this space. Apprenticeships is something that very much are on the, are on the up, particularly in Hertfordshire. They're really things that we want to try and promote as well. So hopefully in the fullness of time, there'll be lots of really, really good apprenticeship options at a variety of different levels. The final section I wanted to come on to, just before we go to some more of the questions that have come in, is it's just around Hertfordshire as a hub for film and media and for set and prop designing. And it's just to reassure everyone watching here that what a great place Hertfordshire is to be if this is the industry you want to go in. So Aaron, let me come to you first of all. Tell us a little bit more about the film and media production industry in Hertfordshire and why it's booming at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got where Quentin worked, which was Sky Studios, and that's just kind of getting off the ground now. It's got a few productions in there, Universal, Working Titles, all of that. It'll have like some of the biggest films going on there, and then you've got Elstree Studios, and that's been there for years and years and years. Did Indiana Jones, Star Wars. You've got Stanley Kubrick's worked there. They had MGM where Elstree Screen Arts is now built. They used to have MGM there. And yeah, Stanley Kubrick did all his films there. I think Alfred Hitchcock might have been there. So Elstree is probably one of the best hubs to be in for film and TV, and definitely at the moment with more things happening. You've also got EastEnders and stuff, but yeah, that's just another thing. But yeah, that's.
Steve, I mean, presumably you have students not just from around the country, but internationally coming to join your course. Is Hertfordshire now seen as a bit of a hub for the industry?
I think a lot of students come to us, they view us as being a good course to study on, partly because of our proximity to the big London studios. But at the same time, there's students popping up left, right and centre. The last I heard was that there's stages in Pinewood and Shepton that are booked out for the next 10 years or 15 years. I mean, it's kind of gone bananas really with the volume of work out there. And I know that things have dipped a bit with the writers' strike, but I presume that everything will bounce back from that, and then everything will be, everyone will be going 10 to the dozen with the volume of work that's that they've got to deal with. I mean, just as a last point here as well, as I understand it now, our university is putting in place a commercial film studio literally on the back of the building that I'm sat in at the moment. It's going to be a commercial film studio attached to the university, which in time students can actually get involved in commercial projects when they come in. So hopefully there'd be room there for model design students to actually get on board and actually produce stuff to go on set.
Absolutely, yeah. So look, Hertfordshire is a really exciting place to be for this industry at the moment. I want to go on to some of the questions that have come in, and so there are some that were submitted in the pre-registration as well. So the question that's come in from Kate is, have any of you worked in live theatre? And if so, have you got any experiences that you want to share about that? Yeah, go on, Quentin, yeah.
I worked in live theatre, and that was my routine. I worked in theatre for quite a while, and I used to bounce about freelance again, and I used to teach in a couple of the drama schools as a stage manager. I worked at Alton Towers during the Magic Theatre for a year, doing live magic 3 times a day. I wasn't a magician, although I might suddenly disappear depending on my mood then. What happened to me was I was actually touring a show when I met an art director who said he would come and do a day's work for me, and then I got one day doing a TV job, and did a lot of still doing lots of theatre, and then I've got a few days doing back on the same TV job, and my career was just slowly moved from theatre into TV, and from TV through into film. You know, live theatre is a big love of mine, and that's where my particular journey started.
Sure. Aaron, have you got any particular desires to go and work in live theatre? What would you perceive to be the challenges doing that?
Yeah, I mean, at university where I studied, which was Nottingham Trent, I did a course called Design for Film and Television, and I found that very good. And we learned a bit about some theatre design. We did some, you know, little models of our own ideas of what, you know, might be more theatre-like, or even for live TV studios. And I found that it's all the same principles as film and general television, but it's just more, everything's a bit more surreal, and it could be that it's three walls. I know designs these days are, you know, they're trying to break boundaries and put things and make them like 4-dimensional, and but yeah, generally I've just found it is just slightly more surreal kind of thing, playing around with shapes and then cutting back and refining to get your final kind of outcome of your design for your show. But yeah, no, I haven't actually worked in theatre.
Sure. Steve, I mean, is this a route that many of your students would go into? Do you think they're well prepared for that, if that's what they wanted to go and do?
Many of my students are interested in it. I do think it's a great way to prepare for kind of other avenues, and it's a great place to go and work if that's the area you want to be in. I mean, I started out in theatre, but that was running follow spots, so it's doing lighting from up in the gods. I think it's a perfectly reasonable route to go in. I find students that we have here getting involved in local productions, both on and off campus, producing props and producing costume for local productions. So yeah, I think it's a perfectly good route to go down.
Great. Okay. Aaron, I'm going to ask you this question first of all. How much creative freedom do you get as a designer? Are you following a director's vision quite strictly?
It really depends on the director. I mean, I just know that through the different designers that I've worked with and stuff. And there was one recent one that I did on a film called Damsel. He's called Patrick Totopoulos, amazing person and designer. He designed all the creatures on the film, and he was the designer on Justice League with Zack Snyder. Anyway, because he's got such like a massive vision, you know, he was kind of, I think the director's more than happy to just give him all the creature designs, all the set designs, because he also creates the concept art himself, as well as maybe getting the odd person to help him with some. But because he's got such a strong vision, I think that was probably worked out from like day one, is that maybe the director needs someone that wants to take on a bit more of the look of the film. But then you get maybe on the other spectrum, Bong Joon-ho, that knows exactly what he wants, and there isn't really much room for creativity with someone like that. Yeah, you might get to, you know, they might let you do a lot, but not as much as, you know, other directors might. But so I think as a director, you can't really help it. Either you've got the vision or you've got it, but you feel like you can allow some parts of it to slip away. But it really depends about how controlling the director is. So yeah, that varies.
Aaron, have you ever been in a position where you've wanted to challenge the director? The director said, I want that, and you're thinking, no, this would be much better to do that. Have you been brave enough to challenge them yet, or does that very much depend on who the director is again?
I think when I've been in the art department, I have made like I do let myself be known, like occasionally if I hear something and it will overhear, and then or they say something and I'm like, oh, I think it would be better this way or whatever. But then also if I was one low budget feature, I was quite close to this director who's very like controlling, and yeah, I do sometimes want to make these decisions, but then at the end of the day, it's their call, and you can't really. There's only so much you can kind of argue your opinion across. So it's just how allowing they are to let you. And I guess the more you can show off your ability for other projects and portfolio work, then the more you'll be invited to from day one to have that freedom in doing that on your project.
Sure. Then Quentin, from a prop side, again, does it depend very much on the director? So, if a director tells you to get a purple chair and you could only get them a blue chair, do you have that license to make that call?
I mean, on the whole, if they ask for a purple chair, they'll get a purple chair, and they'll probably get 3 versions of a purple chair for them to be able to choose which purple chair they want. And directors do wield quite a lot of power. However, with regards to the kind of creative process of, we have to make this prop and it necessarily hasn't been seen before. I can't think of an example off my head, but that can quite often start with just a little sketch on a little pad that you could turn around at a show and tell with the director saying, well, we've got this idea, what do you think about it? And then the next plan for that would be, well, I like it, but I think that bit should be longer and that bit should be fatter and that bit should be shorter. Little sketch, we make a maquette for the next show and tell, this is what we discussed, so things can morph with the director through a series of show and tells. So there is still very much a creative process for the props department. You'd never tell a director, no, this is the prop that you should have, because you'd be down the road. But I do find that, with knowledge and experience, it's possible to go in the direction you want to go in, I believe.
Sure. I mean, look, Quentin, obviously you won't mention any names, but do you sort of pick and choose jobs you work on based on the director? Do you think, I can't work for them. I can't spend the next 10 weeks running around for them. I'm going to turn this job down.
To be honest, not on the director, no. I'm very fortunate. I've fallen in with a really good team. We've got a really good core team of people in our department. We've all got each other's backs, so we all really well together. And I'm very happy to sit with them. For me, it's more about the people that I'm working with in my immediate team, and then what the project is. I'm very lucky over the projects that I do tend to have a bit of gravitas, and I'm just fortunate because that's the team that I'm a part of. But to me, it's more about the team, that we're a part, and I'm working well within that team rather than actually what the project is.
Sure. Okay, now I understand. Right. I think I've got time for 2 more questions, and I've got 2 questions, brilliant questions that are coming from Rihanna. So the first one's specifically for Steve, and it is, what are some of the more impressive things you've seen in a portfolio?
I suppose I teach on the special effects pathway here. So the things that I find really impressive are more of the mechanical things. So people who have actually managed to produce things that work, that move. But that's just for me and my own kind of particular fascination with mechanics and special effects. I suppose a lot of the stuff that I see in portfolios is kind of varying degrees of finish, but the stuff that people have actually really spent time over finessing and getting right. So not necessarily just being happy with the first attempt at it, but trying to refine that and make it more and more fit for purpose. That's I think that is they're usually in for an interview, those people.
Sure, good advice. So look, the final question, so it's also come from Rihanna. So I'll go to Aaron first, and I'll go to Quentin for it. Well, it's sort of in two parts, really. So firstly, are there any upcoming projects that you're looking forward to? And again, as long as you've got a non-disclaimer agreement that's going to allow you to answer that. And then, is there a movie you would want to be a part of? So Aaron, I'll send that one to you first.
There are just various like independent films that I've got, like just doing maybe the odd week here or there that I've kind of like penciled in. But in terms of long term, it has been an issue with the strikes going on at the moment. And I mean, you know, I'm mentioning that because it is a big thing in the industry, and I think 3/4 of the UK crew have been, you know, out of work. But I reckon definitely by March next year it will be at full overblown capacity. And in terms of what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, is there a movie or one particular movie you'd want to be a part of, either one that's in production or one that perhaps already is out there?
Oh, for me, I mean, it's just whatever. I guess I'm a quite big believer in like independent cinema, and you know, I'm going to the London Film Festival and stuff. So definitely, I think finding a long-term job on an independent film would be great. That pays well, but that, you know, that kind of ideal is, you know, it doesn't usually happen. You've got to be really lucky on getting that right job. But then also, you know, I'd happily work on a big Star Wars film. So or Indiana Jones or whatever. So yeah, anything really. I think it's all quite exciting.
Sure. So Quentin, any projects that are upcoming you can talk to us about that you're excited about? And then what movie would you most like to be a part of?
It's a really good question. I was we were shooting there's two films called Wicked, which are film versions of the musical. We were in the middle of shooting those before the strike came along and closed everything down. So looking forward to getting back and finishing those, because I think they're going to be fantastic films. The look is amazing, the product is amazing that we're making. So looking forward to finishing those. And as for what film I'd like to do, I have to admit, nothing beats doing a Bond film. You know, there's rumours about there being another one coming up. I hope there is. There are really exciting projects to do. Nothing beats a good British Bond film.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. Look, well, Steve, it's unfair for me not to ask you that question, because I'm sure you have, you know, films and TV productions that you'd be really excited to work on. So, what would you like to go on, and what do you find your students talk about? What are the sorts of films that they're interested in being a part of?
Students talk about all sorts. Actually, you find some real kind of niche stuff coming up amongst the students, things that I've never heard of before. But then also the kind of main feature films as well. So there's all sorts that people talk about and people discuss and people try to copy up in the studios. I suppose from a personal point of view, I'm no longer the biggest fan of Star Wars, I suppose, but it was such a massive part of my childhood. I think that if I was to want to be involved in any kind of movie, it would be for the nostalgia sense. I'd like to make some of the stuff, you know, the little spaceships and the creatures from the Star Wars movies. That's what would float my boat.
There we go. Some good answers there. So look, just to conclude, we always do a further reading section, and Aaron, there were a couple of books that you were keen to highlight here. So tell us a little bit about the two books that you've given me information about.
Yeah, so I've got them here as well. Yeah, so The Art of Film is someone that I've studied under the person that you know, this book is generally about, and it's just a general understanding of being what it's like to be within the film industry as like an art director slash designer, it might say, you know, a bit about the hierarchy, but it's this guy's, Terry's experience working on Aliens, helping design them, make the Batman. So it's more like personal accounts. So I thought that would be a good thing to put in. And then also this designing for screen is just quite a good general outline to the steps that you need to do in helping, you know, make / design a film, with the research to model making and technical drawing, and yeah, those kinds of elements. But yeah, I would definitely say if you want to get into the arts department, how important the concept of technical drawing is. And really, they're gonna, you know, in order to get employed in the model making department is slightly separate in the actual film world. We do have sometimes on a big film you might get one model maker, but in terms of getting into the other areas of the department, technical drawing is very important, and you would need some of that in your portfolio to get employed. And that's, you know, I did that at uni, and I did a short course and before I got in. So yeah, I'd definitely look into technical drawing if that's what you wanted to get into within the arts department. Whereas model making, you know, if that's exactly what you want to get into, then I'd go full ahead with doing anything model making based. But yeah, if you work that out early on, definitely recommend doing any kind of technical drawing.
For sure. Okay, thank you. The 2 QR codes you've got on that screen there, one there is for an organisation called Screen Skills, which is a really good website that will give you a lot of information quite generally about lots of the different roles that are out in the industry as well. So do have a look at that. And then there's a QR code there to the University of Hertfordshire's page. So the courses that Steve delivers on through the arts department, you'll find lots of information about the variety of different courses that we've spoken about today. So I'll keep those up for a second or so in case you want to take pictures of those. Quentin, let me just give you final word then. If you were looking to employ someone within your organisation to work on props, kind of give me 3 qualities that you'd be looking for in that person to make them an ideal member of your team.
Smiling and happy disposition. Eager and keen. For me, it is all about the attitude to work. You know, being on time, being keen, getting on, being a people person, and also you know, in that first job, being good on the end of the run.
Absolutely, sounds like good advice. The final advice that we're going to leave for all of you is make sure you have a look at the HOP website. Make sure you share it with your family and your friends at school as well. This webinar has been recorded. It will be on our website probably from tomorrow morning. If you look following that QR code there, you'll find all 70 odd webinars that we've run over the last 4 years or so. So there's definitely something for everyone on there. So do make sure you share it. Let me thank all of you in the audience for watching live and for submitting your really great questions to us this afternoon. So thank you. But more particularly, thank you to my 3 panelists, so to Quentin, to Aaron, and for Steve for giving up their time for this webinar and for sharing your experiences with us. We hope you've enjoyed it here today, and we wish you all the very, very best with your next career decisions.